Okay, here we go. Post show. What is up, Patreon crew? First, thank you. Thank you for being a supporter of the show week in, week out, month in, month out. Very excited to have the post show with Chrissy. Chrissy's just awesome, inspiring. Kim and I have been long-term fans, and especially now after she comes back from China, puts on this incredible event and joins us tonight. Like that last 8 days, I imagine, have been a bit of a clusterfuck. So to have Chrissy join us here tonight was really, really awesome. So if you are joining us for the first time in the post show, just click on over to the YouTube page. If you're watching on the Patreon page, click the YouTube logo link just by hovering over this video, and you can join over into the YouTube chat, which is going to be the live chat that we'll pull questions from tonight. And let's get it started. What do we got?
Let's get it started. There's a couple questions from the main show that I'll ask, but yes, pop in the new questions in the new chat room as well. Nathaniel in the main show asked, Chrissy, Chuckanut is an iconic race. Where do you see it going in the future?
Where do I see it going in the future?
Besides smoke bombs and lasers.
Smoke bombs and laser show starting at 2 p.m. I feel like the race, I probably should have more of a vision, but my vision for it is to maintain exactly how you described it. Like, that's the best compliment to me, is that it feels like a community event, but very well done. It's not, we have chip time. We've done a lot of like high-end things that I've experienced when I've traveled around the world, and like, this is a top-notch event. How can I bring this into Chuckanut? Yeah. Those elements are there, but yet maintain Bellingham. Like, how do you keep it feeling like it is volunteers, it is people that love the sport, that love the trails. It's the community that's putting on the event, not some production company. And I mean, you saying that is the best compliment. I'm doing exactly what I want to do with the race. So I guess there's not really a future vision other than maintaining that, like making sure that the community gets to feel what an ultra felt like. Well, I guess that's not really true. What an ultra felt 20 years ago, like when I finished the race, Doug McKeever was sitting in a sleeping bag in the back of his truck. I knocked on the window and he wrote down my time.
Right.
It's a little different than that. But that community, like, love of it, like, it was a potluck at the end, and we did that for years. Now we have food trucks. Like, I guess there are some things that evolve out of necessity, but if we can still keep that feel, even though we're doing all those other elements, that's my goal.
Yeah, I don't know if ultras can even ever go back to that place of knocking on a window and you know, letting someone know your time. I feel like if those events exist, they have to be pretty rare and probably pretty special and small, right?
I know of one.
You do know of one? Is that what you said?
Yeah, the Needles.
Oh yeah, for sure. Right? Yeah.
And Rich White's event. That was fun. Adam Huey.
I can't wait to do that one because of exactly what you described.
Yeah.
Knowing Cascade, when I ran Cascade, that was the experience I got. Was this is OG? So there's no pomp and circumstance. It is a local crew of hardcore badass runners putting on an event that is beautiful and rugged and tough, and everyone that finishes gets to hang out and share stories, and there's no, you know, there's not a shit ton of cameras and all that sort of stuff around. So it's no brainer that like Rich and that whole crew put something like the Needles 50K on. I wonder if that's going to stay the case. I hope it does.
Yeah, we'll see. I hope
we'll
so.
See. Keep going. Sorry, Kim.
Yeah, a question from Jeremy. Jeremy asked, does Chrissy have one bit of advice to have a successful 100-miler, either in training or the race itself?
I would say in training, the biggest thing is the back-to-backs and getting your body and mind used to being tired when you're running. And there's probably some arguments against that method, if you will. It's the one thing that I find myself drawing on come race day when I'm tired and things are hard. It's like, but you did this in training. Like you got out on a 15-mile run after you did a 30-mile run the day before. So those back-to-back training, and I even did back-to-back-to-back. I mean, in order to get 100 miles in a week, you got to do some pretty
do big stuff, right?
In there. So I think back-to-backs are a really key part of your training. And then recovery. A lot of people overlook recovery. They think they got to run more and train more and run harder but you actually have to recover because you have to let your body absorb the work that you did. And if you
Right.
don't take that break, both physically and mentally, you're not going to see the results. Like, you're just going to keep breaking your body down. You have to heal in order to get the most out of it. And then come race day, you got to freaking enjoy it. Like, you've put in all this hard work. You got to be there in a place where you're ready to enjoy it. And I guess to add to the winter of training, I got in a pretty dark spot this winter, and it was not fun. I did not like how I was interacting with the rest of the world. I was in a pretty like worn thin place. And so the last month prior to China, I knew, like, fortunately with the experience I've had over the years, that if I went into the race that way, I wasn't going to finish because it would get hard and I'd want out. Yeah. So I didn't run for the last 3 weeks prior to the race. I went back to strength training and then just really focused on healing, like just getting my whole mind and body and spirit around like wanting to run the long distance again.
I mean,
so you got to want it, I guess.
Yeah. And I it actually helps to hear that someone of your caliber still has rough training sessions and is able to continue to push through that and win. I mean, the regular runner won't be able to win at that level, but at the same point, it's nice to know that even the elites go through rough training patches where it hurts and sucks and your mood isn't there, you know?
Yeah.
Totally. And just knowing how to fix it, I think that's what makes a difference.
Yeah.
I actually listened. And I mean, my training plan had me running a lot more in that last month. And I just knew that I kept telling myself, what would I tell my coaching client if they came to me with the attitude that I have right now? Mm-hmm. And I had to look at it as a third person, because otherwise I probably would have tried to run more. But
yeah. Let's get to more questions.
Yeah. A question from Scout. Scout asks, any insight for how to stay in the sport for longevity? I'm inspired by the Gunhild Swansons and Gordy Ainsleys of the sport and would love to participate well into the golden years.
Me too.
Any advice?
Any tips? Advice?
I guess I turned 40 last October. That was my big milestone.
Yay!
15 years. What I've noticed is the importance of strength. So recovery's always been a big thing. Nutrition's always been a big thing. But getting back into really moving some heavy weights around in the gym, like or in a gym-like setting. I have a group up here. It's called Trailhead Athletics.
Okay.
That I go participate in their workouts. And that's what I did those last 3 weeks prior to the race, was just focused on strength work. And as we get older, we don't maintain muscle mass as well, and especially as runners. So if we can work to maintain that and support our running through strength, that's how I'm approaching the golden years. How about that? Like, I'm approaching it through this idea of recovery and strength. And gosh, I mean, the muscle memory's there. I've done the miles. If you've been a runner for a long time, you know how to do that part. So kind of mixing it up and adding that component. That's how I'm going at it. We'll see how it works. I'll check back in 20 years.
Yeah. You're not the only runner to even bring that up, like strength training. Mm-hmm. I mean, Gary talks about it a lot too, and how he's able to do all these incredible miles and gain weeks of gain and stuff. It's because he's also doing the work in the gym. And I think a lot of people underestimate that. I know I could use more strength.
You're very strong.
Kim's not lying, guys. I do a lot of pull-ups. No, like I'm weak. I just trust that running is going to do everything, and the reality is that's not the case. And as we get older, you realize quickly that's not the case.
Question from John, who ran the race this weekend. John says, I thought the Chucknut Trail signs were awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
Who came up with them? I think you mentioned in the main show. And then John also asked, do they change year to year?
Doug tries to find. It's all Doug. I give him 100% credit that he goes out and marks the course, and then the next day he goes out and takes down all the course signs. He does not let the pacers, or I'm sorry, the sweepers take him. Don't take down my signs. I'll go get them. He stores them all year long.
That's cool.
He does add some new ones it's like if there's new clip art, he like figures something out or whatever.
They're very clip art heavy, but I appreciate that.
Third grade humor, and he loves it.
Yeah.
He was a professor at the local community college till he retired, so he's got a knack for that, I guess.
I will say there was one up on the ridge line. It was probably mile once you get onto the ridgeline, or half or something, and it just said "Feel the rhythm," and it had like some running feet or something like that. And I kept thinking I was going to see another sign that said "Feel the rhyme,"
Cool
and then
running?
like a Cool Runnings progression. It never happened, and I I got really mad. I was like, a mile later, I'm like, there was no "Feel the rhyme." Where's the bobsled time? I didn't know who to blame. Now I do.
You know where to send your complaint.
I know where to send my complaint. My Chuckanut complaint is that there was no Cool Runnings reference. If that's my sole complaint, you nailed it, Chrissy. Nailed it. Yeah. Let's get to like maybe one or two more questions.
Yeah, a question from Kimosabi75. Chrissy, where do you see yourself as an elite runner after all these years of racing? Are your goals the same as they were at the beginning of your ultra career?
Oh, definitely not. No, definitely things have definitely morphed. I really enjoy and I feel like I'm in the evolution right now. I don't know what the end looks like. I know where I've come from, and I'm in the process of shifting to whatever it is. What I'm really enjoying is coaching and the running camps that I get to be a part of. I'm at 4 different running camps, one in Burlington, Vermont, one at Mount Hood. The one at Mount Hood is with Mazamas. The one in Burlington, Vermont is put on by Julbo. One with Run the Alps in Switzerland, and one in Durango with Jeff Browning. We're putting on the one at the Colorado Running Ranch. So all these really cool opportunities to have like pretty solid time with people on the trails, in the classroom, if you will, in the restaurant. How about that? Because we get to eat, share meals, and talk trails for a week. So just that kind of shift and morphing into being a part of other people's running experiences.
No doubt. Let's get to one more question.
Yeah, it's a training question from Lori Hall in the chat room.
What's up, Lori?
Lori asks, can we talk about taper? I hate taper time. It messes with my mind and I feel awful. Any tips to get through the mind games?
Taper tantrums is what a lot of us, I've heard them called as well. Yeah, because we want to run. We love being out there, and that's our jive, our thing that we get to do every day. I think it's all about putting, like, what we call it, money in the bank, peanut butter in the jar, whatever it is that you want to visualize that you're making. It's for race day.
Right.
So if you just spend energy in a different way, in my book, I talk about putting that energy towards being very well planned. So have your race plan dialed in, have your bag packed 4 days in advance. And then from there, those last couple of days, I talk about reaching out to that community that supported you getting to that point. So make a meal for your friends, like have people over and have some energy shared that way, as opposed to going for another run, and then soak up the energy that creates, because you will need it on race day.
Love it. We're not going to keep you any longer, Chrissy. We really appreciate you taking the time out tonight to join us and
to get to chat with you like this. We should
just
not on mic since sometime.
Yeah. We Kim and I are actually talking a lot about how we haven't made it up to Bellingham for just like leisure. Hangouts and leisure and running and just having fun, because obviously you and Gretchen and a bunch of our friends live up there, and it would be really nice to see those trails, not just the trails that are on the course, but I know that there's a whole network on the backside of the Chuckanuts and over towards Baker and stuff. So
I have a guest room.
Oh, well, now it's sold.
I have a dog. Dog gets it most of the time, so you have to deal with that. But
come on, now you're basically making it like amazing.
Yeah.
As long as you promise lasers and smoke bombs will be there.
I know, that's the thing.
Thank you, Patreon crew, for again the support month in and month out. And honestly, run Chuckanut 50K. I can't recommend it enough. It's not me saying that because Chrissy is here. I promise you, it is a great race, and many of you have not run ultras yet, and you're supporting us because you have aspirations to do such. I would highly recommend Chuckanut as a first ultra. Chrissy's done it. That was her first ultra. There was a lot of first timers out there this weekend too. It was really cool.
Every year, the race is kind of known for that. It's well enough supported. It's challenging enough, but also you're not going to get yourself in too bad of a situation. Yeah, it's a really good first ultra.
So I can't recommend it enough. And just register. You're going to have to do it fast, because I know each year it gets faster and faster.
Still 12 hours this year.
It's going to be minutes. I guarantee you next year it's going to be minutes.
Okay.
So just be ready for that. Be ready for either the wait, or you're gonna have to go to a Western States lottery. You're gonna have to do like the
tickets,
balls and tickets, and you have to run like a qualifying 100-miler to run Chuckanut.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be crazy. Thank you, Chrissy. What am I
Thank you,
forgetting?
guys.
I think I was gonna say maybe we can let Chrissy go, so we don't keep her all night. There's people that have questions for you about your race.
Oh, sure.
Do you want to stick around for a couple
I
of
want to hear.
minutes?
Can I just sit and listen?
Yeah, you can sit and listen.
Yeah,
We'll just
sure.
Chrissy's not going anywhere, guys.
I just want to hear. Yeah.
What's the question?
Oh, there was a lot of people in the main show and in the post show as well, just kind of wanting like a quick recap from you about how your day went, gear questions.
Sure. Yeah, I can do the like general recap.
And I'll ask a specific question from somebody from the main show. Ben asked, how important was it for Ethan to go back and race after you DNF'd at Chuckanut?
Okay. Yeah, great. That's a good starting point.
Yeah.
So I'll start there. So last year, obviously Chrissy knows some of this, but and some of you Patreon do as well. But last year going into Chuckanut, I had come off of a good year of racing. I had a number of ultras that last year, which I think was 2016. I had my 100-miler the year before that, and my confidence was really high. I was like, I could sign up for any 50K, any 100K, 50-mile or whatever, and just know I'd be able to get through it. It's just a matter of, is it going to be a PR or is it going to be a rough day or whatever? I just get it done. Going into last year's Chuckanut, 3 days before, I went up to Vancouver to film Gary training for Barkley, because it was between 2016 and 2017 Barkley, and I wanted to get some of that footage. And we went on this training run together that Gary was like, he was doing his long overnight session, which was going to be a 12-hour, 20,000 feet gain night. It's his big Barkley trainer. And I knew that. So my thing was, I want to bring my camera along and film as much of it as I can. Maybe I'll stick around for a loop, which is him going up and down. It's about a 2 mile. It's 1 mile up, 1 mile down, but it's, I think, close to 2,000 or 2,100 feet of gain or something. So I was like, I'm going to do one loop with Gary. I'll be fine. I got really injured on one loop. I popped my adductor and fell on the descent. I fell on my ass, which gave me the biggest bruise I've ever had. But it was the adductor thing that caused me a lot of issue. And I knew I had Chuckanut 3 days later, but I thought, well, I get injured from time to time, and sometimes it's a like shake it off, and sometimes it's a couple days off, and I was already in taper, so I didn't think anything of it. And then I started Chuckanut, and by the time I got to, as we talked about, the race is flat for the first 6 miles, 7 miles ish. You hit an aid station before you start going up onto the trails. It was a muddy year, it was really rainy. And as soon as I got to that aid station, it kind of ducks you onto this 1/10 of a mile bit of trail section before you hit the uphill. And there was mud, and like my right foot slipped out a little bit from under me, and my adductor like immediately let me know today was not the day. You do not want to get up into mud or any sort of issue, because it was really painful. So I pulled the plug and ran back to the start line just along the route. I told the aid station, I was like, I'm not going to continue on, but I do want to run back to the start line because it's just flat gravel. I knew I would be fine. I get back there, and of course Chrissy and her team have an amazing on-site like massage and ART. Jeff, one of the guys that was there that was doing ART, did a session on my adductor, and he's like, yeah man, this is really bad. And so over the last year, that pain never went away. Every run last year had pain and was really uncomfortable. There was maybe an ebb and flow every 3 months or so, where I would get a series of runs that felt less painful than they had, and I was like, oh my god, I'm seeing the light. It's like I'm cured. But then it would kind of pop back, or something else would pop back, and a lot of overcompensation injury and just weird stuff. So it was really frustrating. And during that same time, we moved, and I was kind of going through a phase of losing my love of running, and I thought that I wouldn't. My brain was telling me that I would never run an ultra again. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why, but as someone who's dealt with anxiety a lot since I was a kid, it's just been an ongoing thing that I've dealt with my entire life. A part of why I run ultras is because it puts me right into full-fledged like facing anxiety and dealing with problems on the fly and having to overcome those problems. And that's why I was really excited about finding the sport of ultra, is because it allowed me to essentially do the exposure therapy, where every ultra was me getting over my anxiety. But over the last year of not racing a lot, that anxiety built and built and built and built until probably October, November. It was just my brain was not letting me do long runs. I was having a really difficult time being out on the trails alone. I would just go into like, I'm going to die. I'm out here. I'm going to die. I need to get to a road or something. And it was really hard. And of course, I have a wonderful wife who helped me through a lot of that. And I had to take some time off from big long runs and stuff. And all my friends are like, dude, you got to come running with us. And I'm like, I don't think I'm a good person to have along for the ride today. But in my mind, I knew I had to sign up for something.
Right.
Because there's that seed in your mind that you know you have to prove to yourself you still got it. And so for me, that was Chuckanut because I wasn't able to finish the year before. It was a 50K distance. It's about the shortest distance you can do as an ultra, other than 26.3 miles. And I knew that it's on trails that a lot of my friends love. It is a aid stationed race. There's tons of volunteers. You don't get super remote. So there's all these factors that helped it be a good return for me. And so the last probably 3 or 4 months, like through December into January, things started to get better. I was able to link up long runs and feel really confident with them. David Roach and the Roaches gave me a really good training plan that kept me really flexible. So if for some reason I had a run that didn't work well, I could bounce out of it and train up the next day. And things were really working well. But my brain still hadn't I hadn't gotten into the headspace where I knew I could finish it. So going into this year's Chuckanut, it felt like I was running my first ultra again. All of my 100Ks and 100-miler and 50-milers and 50Ks, 20-plus ultras, which is not a lot for a lot of people who've been in ultra for a long time, but that's a lot of experience that didn't matter. My brain was not allowing it to compute. It was just going, you are brand new to the sport. You are not going to be able to do it. This is your first ultra. It's terrifying. So I went into this year's Chuckanut with the mindset that, fuck, I might not be able to finish this thing. I've never run 31 miles before. This is crazy. And that was really difficult as someone who has I have a resume that I can look at and go, man, you've done some really tough races in tough conditions. But throughout this race, and because it is such a solid event with great volunteers and a course that you can pick apart in pieces. The first 10K is flat. It's the same as the last 10K because it's an out and back. And you have these hill sections that you're like, this hill lasts exactly this amount of time until you get to that aid station. And then from there, it's a roller. And then you have a hill from one aid station to the next. You can cut it up into pieces that are digestible and you can process them. And so the entire day, the first 15 miles, I decided, don't let the negative thoughts in. So I fought for those first 15 miles to just constantly push out you're going too slow, you're too fat, you can't do this, you can't do that. All those negative thoughts, I had to consciously just keep pushing them out. And one of the best things about this race, and we talked about it on the main show, but what helped me a lot was just talking to people around me. Every other ultra that I've ever run, I really dislike talking because I feel like I needed to be in my own head. I need to make sure that I was focused on what I was doing. Occasionally, I'd have a conversation with someone that I'd be running with. Like at Cascade Crest, there was someone I was running with. We had maybe 4 hours where we just had a blast, and it was so helpful. So Chuckanut, that's what I did. People would start a conversation with me, and I would just engage. I would just start talking and find out who they were, where they were from. And it was so awesome it was like a conscious effort to not let my brain process anything except for the conversation that we were having. And it was really helpful. Chrissy, you might be able to help me with the aid station names, but what's the first aid station after, what's aid station number 2?
The trail's called $2. So
$2. Yeah. And that's when you hit the road and you do that long fire road up to the next aid station, right? Yep. So that section for me, I was like, this is all uphill and I just need to power hike or run when I can. And there was a big group that was all chatting about something and they kind of overcame me because they were moving really well. And then I just kind of joined up with them and we just had this conversation and it was the coolest thing because I just stopped thinking about the race. And I got to learn, 4 or 5 different people's stories, where they were traveling from, people from different states and different backgrounds. And that got me, before I knew it, I was at that next aid station. And that moment reminded me that is ultra, where you pick a point where you're focused on getting to, and then you just get there. And then from there, you pick your next point and you get to there. So it like woke me up instantly. It was like, oh my God, you're fine. You're at mile 14 now. You didn't even realize you got here. All you need to do is pick your next point, and that is your mental, that's your ammunition. Like, that's how you will get there. And so for me, it was mile 20. At that point, I was like, just get to mile 20, because at mile 20 or 21, you start Chin Scraper, which is the last climb of the race, and then it's all downhill to the, like, my mind just kind of processed out this whole strategy. And I got to enjoy the ridgeline. I started feeling a little sick on the ridgeline, but that was because of the shot of non-alcohol that I had at that aid station. But I just kind of managed to mentally and physically push through it. And the next thing you know, I was at the bottom of Chin Scraper. I was feeling great at that point. Talking with people, I had so much extra energy that I just started to, I didn't run Chin Scraper, but now looking back, I could have, which is not what I expected to be the case. And I ran the entire downhill and took over a lot of people, and ran the last 10K and took over a lot of people, and finished with a fucking smile. And it felt so good to finish at 50K again, having no lows. Like, there were no big lows at all. And that's how I was racing before I had to take the break. I was able to process all of the races as unique experiences, and I would end up racing with very few lows. So it felt really good to do that. And I'm not saying that I'm over my anxiety or anything like that.
It's a good confidence booster.
But it was a really good confidence booster. Yeah. And yeah, so again, I can't recommend this race enough. It helped me.
And can we have a gear rundown?
Yeah. So shoes, I wore the Hoka Nepali because it's cheap.
I think Tim, who I was hanging out with at the finish line, was answering some of your gear questions for people.
That's really funny, yeah, because he saw.
Because we spent a lot of time with Tim, yeah.
Hoka Nepali, they're under $100. They're super cushioned. They actually were really durable. I will tell you that Hoka is actually discontinuing that shoe because they've already figured out that it's a money loss for them.
They made a mistake.
So if you buy it, or if you haven't, get them now. So yeah, Hoka Nepali, the pack, I was wearing the Solomon S Lab 5 set, and with the soft flasks. Tailwind and gels, but I'm trying to think of what I didn't really like the Tailwind, because I don't like drinking too much liquid.
Right.
So I made it really thick.
I
did a lot of Coke at the end. I just had one of my soft flasks just full of Coke and cocaine, and gels, and that was pretty much it. Pretty basic. I knew it wasn't a huge endeavor as far as time and stuff, so I didn't have to go too crazy with real food and things like that. Does that ever answer everyone's questions? I hope so.
I think so. And anything up next for you at this point?
So we reached 100,000 subscribers on the channel, and my goal is to run 100,000 meters, which is 100 kilometers. Figured it run a meter for every subscriber. So the goal is to run 100 kilometers within the next couple of months. Kim's race at Lake Sonoma is our first priority.
Right.
So I don't want to take away from that. After that, then we'll plan the 100K. And this is going to be a route that I choose. I would like to choose a route that maybe runs around Seattle, maybe goes out to the Issy Alps and something like that. 62 miles is a long way, so I feel like we'll be able to plan something pretty cool around the area. But that'll be neat. And we'll let everyone on Patreon know, and locals know. Chris, if you want to come down, we'd love to run with you too during it, but it's going to be a full day sort of adventure run. Should be fun.
That sounds awesome.
I feel like
is Chrissy still there?
Chrissy just turned off all the lights and she's just like taking a nap. But yeah. Thank you, Chrissy, again for a race that I needed. I mean, you'll never know how much my brain needed it, and I can only thank you 1,000 times. I just thank you. Thank you for putting on such an amazing event.
I've been there, Ethan. I ebbed away from ultra running in 2008, and I have a bunch of stories I wrote about that time. I know your story. In my own experience, I know a similar story of do I still want to be an ultra runner? Like
Right.
pushing it and then finding that race. Grindstone was the race that brought me back.
Grindstone is on my list. I've been told some great things about it.
Yeah, Clark does a really good job with that. But yeah, that's a tough experience to go through for sure, especially when it's such a love.
And what sucks is when I like Ginger Runner, this whole thing and the show, and of course all of our Patreon supporters. I started it as a project and then kind of went into ultra, and the next thing I know, over the years of running ultras, all of a sudden ultras are now causing more pain than they are healing it, and I was getting really scared. I was like, oh my god, everyone's gonna disown me and not want to associate because I can't run an ultra now. Like, am I going to be able to maintain my ultra card? And but the reality is, I think this is what I learned in the last 6 months or so, is that results will never define me. It'll always be inside my own head, and I just need to be okay with the experiences and not the results.
Yeah, and I also think that what you went through and like kind of what Chrissy is talking about, I think it's a lot more common than people think.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people reach out.
Yeah.
And actually 3 women at Chuckin' Up this weekend, I don't remember the names, but they were 3 separate instances where they came up to me and said, I deal with anxiety, and you talking about anxiety publicly about this race and racing helped me toe the start line today. I was originally going to drop out, but knowing that you were out here suffering from anxiety on these trails or dealing with whatever things you had made me think it was okay. And they both, like 2 of them, kicked my ass like hard. And it was awesome to see them at the finish line. We gave each other hugs and stuff. And it sucks that I forget their names, but one of them was like, were you okay out there? And I was like, I was fine. Were you okay? She's like, I was fine. And it was really cool to see that people were able to overcome some stuff out there. And it's perfect race for it. It's pretty awesome.
So it's what it's all about.
Yeah. Thanks, Chrissy. I don't want to keep you because I feel like
listening on your story too.
Nighttime. Say hi to Petey and say hi to Gretchen. Give Gretchen our love too.
Gretchen's
I know. I get to see her on Friday.
Sweet. It sucked that she wasn't able to race, but she's a good friend. She's good people.
Still out there supporting everybody, losing her voice.
I know. That was really funny. I was like, what happened to your voice? She's like, I've just been cheering. Sweet. And thank you, everyone on Patreon. I hope that answers some of your questions. That's it. We'll see you guys next Monday. Cool. Thanks a lot, everybody.
And Patreon people that have been asking throughout this week and last week, we are doing a Patreon crew live. I think Ethan is choosing a date and time.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Okay.
We'll do it Wednesday. I'll post that link for Patreon crew live members. Yes. Yeah, we'll do that on Wednesday. So look forward to that.
All right.
Sweet. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you guys next week. Okay. Bye.
I'm waiting. Bye.